Hello, everyone. We are about to start our webinar in a few minutes. This is Missy Langley and
Mariska Jordan. We're so excited to be with you all today. So give us just a few more minutes. We'll allow some more people to check in, and then we'll get started.
okay, everyone, we're getting ready to get started. Give us a few more minutes. We're waiting on a couple of people to join in. Alrighty, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started today. Good afternoon. Again, this is Mitzi Langley and Mariska Jordan. We will begin our webinar just in a few minutes, having some technical glitches. All right. So it is, what a day, what a day. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our webinar. Thank you all for joining us today. We are very excited about that, and we're going to go ahead and get started now. Okay, so today's webinar will be on food and milk substitutions, milk, dairy, food, and allergies, and accommodating children with special dietary needs for the CACFP, which is the Child and Adult Care Food Program, and the National School Lunch Program. All right, so next we're going to go over our learning objectives. Today we will have a few objectives we want to cover. After the webinar, participants will be able to have the knowledge of when CACFP and National School Lunch Facilities. Give me 1 second. We're having some technical issues. All right, we're almost back. Give me 1 second. Okay, sorry, we are back again. Once again, these are our learning objectives for today. After the webinar, participants will have knowledge of when CACFP and National School Lunch Facilities are required versus encouraged to provide food substitutions, understand the difference between a disability and a food intolerance/allergy, how to accommodate vegetarian and vegan diets, understand how the tofu and soy yogurt credit using the food buying guide, identify fluid milk requirements for different age groups, and understand substitution guidelines by practicing with scenarios. Okay, so if we're ready to get started, first we're going to cover regarding food substitutions. CACFP facilities and National School Lunch must make food substitutions a reasonable accommodation for children with disabilities. Facilities are encouraged but not required to provide substitutions for accommodations. However, we want you guys to all work with your parents when you are allowed to do so. So we'll talk about the difference between a disability and a preference here in a minute. But this right here is the USDA Department of Agriculture Non-Discrimination Regulation. It applies to anyone participating in a federally funded meal program, including the CACFP program and the National School Lunch Program. Program operators must make reasonable modifications to meals, including providing special meals at no extra charge to accommodate disabilities, which restrict a participant's diet. Some disabilities may require modifications to the service provided at mealtime. For example, a child with diabetes may require help tracking what he or she eats at each meal. Program operators may consider taking steps to design a meal plan with the program meal pattern to accommodate common disabilities. In many cases, disabilities can be managed within the program meal pattern requirements when a well-planned variety of nutritious foods is available to participants. However, in other cases, the needs of the participant with a disability may require you getting a request for accommodations, so that way you still can get your reimbursable meal. So here on the screen, CACFP and National School Lunch Facilities must make substitutions for children with disabilities. And on the other side of the screen, it says CACFP and National School Lunch Facilities are encouraged but not required to provide substitutions on accommodations when the child does not have a disability. So we'll go through some examples here in a minute. These are what is considered major life activities. Major life activities also include the operation of a major bodily function and do not have to be life-threatening to constitute a disability. Example, digestion is a bodily function. That's a major activity. A child whose digestion is impaired by lactose intolerance may be a person with a disability, regardless of whether or not consuming milk causes the child severe distress. So what we're saying there is, if you have a doctor's note, you follow the doctor's note, how it is written. It's not up to you to question the doctor's note. You take it at face value. Now, you would have to ask questions as far as you don't understand it, or you need accommodations, or you need more instructions, but you do take the doctor's note as written. Next, we'll cover physician statement for food substitutions. CACFP and National School Lunch Facilities are required to have a doctor's note on file for food substitutions when they're making special accommodations. So that's when you're having to deviate from the standard meal pattern. So this could be because there is a impairment that constitutes a disability, or it could be food intolerances or allergies. We have a physician statement located on our DHS resource library. We already have it pre-filled for you, so you can just give that to your parents of your programs. However, you can just accept a doctor's note as well, but we just have provided you one that'll make it easier for you to accept those recommendations. All right, so this is what the physician statement for food substitutions must include. It must include a description of the participant's physical or mental impairment that is sufficient to allow the program operator to understand how it restricts the participant's diet. It should also include explanation of what must be done to accommodate the disability. It also must have listed the child's disability, explanations as how the disability restricts the child's diet, the major life activity affected by a disability, food and beverages omitted, foods and beverages to be substituted, a signature of a medical authority, which that can include a wide variety of license. You need to contact your state agency to see what they deem, who can write prescriptions in your area, but we usually just want a doctor's note on file. If you are not able to get all of these things on the doctor's note, we still will accept a basic doctor's note without all of these things on there. For CACFP, we will.
And while it's not encouraged if you're going to go through the hassle of getting a doctor's note from NSLP, we do ask that you try your best to get all of the required information. However, as Mitzi mentioned with CACFP, we will still accept that as well.
All right, so this is what we want to look for when you're getting those substitutions for a child with a disability. Substitutions must be made to the regular meal, including milk, for any child with disabilities. The child care institution is required to provide the alternative. So that means you, the institution, need to buy the item that they're requesting. We'll talk about different variances in the PowerPoint coming up in a few minutes. In these cases, meals are reimbursable when modifications are made, but you must actually follow the doctor's note. For children with disabilities that only require modifications in food texture, a licensed doctor's note indicating that may be recommended but not required. So if you have a child who just needs maybe soft foods or bland diet, you can do that without a doctor's note. We're really just talking about when you have to alter the meal pattern is when you really need that doctor's note. Substitutions for food intolerances or allergies. So here we're talking about if a physician determines the food allergy is severe enough to result in a life-threatening reaction, then the child's condition meets the definition of a disability, and CACFP and National School Lunch Facilities must make all substitutions as written. For children with food allergies or intolerance that do not rise to a level of disability, substitutions may be made but not required. For a meal to be reimbursable, any substitutions made would need to follow the meal pattern requirements. For example, a center could provide peaches instead of strawberries if a child was allergic to strawberries. check again with the physician statement, that we have on the resource library. You'll see it where it clearly identifies for them to actually write down what substitution they would like. Okay, so next we'll talk about food allergies and child care. Child care programs on the CACFP are responsible for serving meals and snacks to all children. In order to claim reimbursement for the meals and snacks, they're required to comply with the CACFP meal pattern. Sometimes a child is not able to consume one or more of the meal components or requires food or eating modification because of disability or special dietary need. Depending on the type of disability or special dietary need, your center may be required to supply the food substitution or meal modification. Next, we will discuss food allergies in schools. Did you know that about 20% of students with food allergies, 1 in 5, will have a reaction while in school? Food allergies are a growing concern for health and education officials alike. Food allergies affect approximately 4% of school-aged children for reasons that are not completely understood. The incidence of food allergies is also increasing. So we're just going to talk about some of the common food allergies and how you can identify some of them. Each year, millions of Americans have allergic reactions to food. Although most food allergies cause mild and minor symptoms, some food allergies can cause severe reactions and can even be life-threatening. There is no cure for food allergies. Strict avoidance of food allergens and early recognition and management of allergic reactions to food are important measures to prevent serious health consequences. A food allergy occurs when the body has a specific and immune response to certain foods. The body's immune response can be severe and life-threatening. Although the immune system normally protects people from germs, in people with food allergies, the immune system mistakenly responds to food as if it was harmful. 8 foods and food groups account for 90% of serious allergic reactions in the U.S. They are milk, egg, fish, shellfish, wheat, soy, peanuts, and tree nuts. So those are the common 8 major food allergens by law. The law requires that food labels identify the food source names of all major food allergens used to make food. This requirement is met if the common or usual name of the ingredient, such as buttermilk, that is the major food allergen already identifies that allergen's food source name, such as milk. Otherwise, the allergen's food source name must be declared at least once on the label in one of 2 ways. So you see here it says in parentheses following the name of the ingredient. So this says lecithin, which is soy, flour, which is wheat, and whey, which is milk. So it can clearly identify in layman terms what those items are so you can know if a child was, for example, allergic to soy or allergic to wheat. The next here you have is it says immediately after or next to the list of ingredients, it in a contained statement. So this is another example of what a label could read. Example contains wheat, milk, or soy. So when you're reading those labels, you really have to pay attention to that. Thank you. All right, so this next slide, we're going to talk about how to know the symptoms. Symptoms of food allergies typically appear within a few minutes to 2 hours after a person has eaten the foods in which they're allergic. Young children, as you know, may not be able to clearly express that they are experiencing some type of allergic reaction. Some of the things a child might say could indicate, as listed here to the right. It could be that they're maybe holding their throat, like the photo. They could have cramps. They could have diarrhea, swelling, flesh, skin or rash, hives, difficulty breathing, and of course, they could lose consciousness as well. So those are some of the things when you're doing your trainings with your providers that you want to really think about. A child may also say things like, my tongue itches, or they may say, my lips feel tight, feels like a frog is in my throat, feels like bugs are in my ears. Those are all common children language that you may experience in your centers. It's important to remember that children can have their first allergic reaction while in your care. Because of this, having food allergy training is definitely recommended at your center, even if a program has no enrolled children with known food allergies. So you may want to still train your staff on the things I talked about a few slides ago. Some steps you may take include arrange for training to be conducted by a child care health consultant. If you have a nurse or a registered dietitian, get them to talk to you about this. You also could handle food allergies and food intolerances on a case-by-case basis. Of course, you all do this. You talk to the parents and guardians about their child's allergies or intolerances. Know where emergency medications are. Be aware of what food is being served. Always actively supervise the children when they're eating and follow a regular menu when possible. Down below, there are some tips for all about food allergies located on the Teen Nutrition website that can help you with further information. Substitutions for non-medical reasons. In cases where a parent requests a food substitution for non-medical reasons, CACFP and National School Lunch Programs facilities are encouraged to work with parents to help provide those substitutions. So that could be an example of if you have a child who is a vegan or a vegetarian, or you have a religious preference, or it could be a personal preference. As we learned a few slides ago, you're not required to accommodate non-medical reasons. However, we would love for you to work with your parents and providers. So, for example, a child who does not eat pork for religious reasons because they are vegetarian or vegan, you can easily just give them an alternative. There's some examples listed below, such as cheese, yogurt, or peanut butter. It still will be a reimbursable meal. Just remember to receive USDA reimbursement, meals and snacks served must include all the CACFP and National School Lunch meal pattern components. When substitutions are made, please make sure you document it for your compliance review. All right, so next we'll look at how to accommodate a vegetarian and vegan diet. So this, of course, as we mentioned below, is a non-medical reason for substitution. You have the flexibility to serve vegan and vegetarians while still complying with all your nutrition requirements. To the required CACFP food groups are those 5 items. That's milk, bread, fruit, vegetable, and meat. Milk can you can easily serve soy to accommodate those children as long as you follow the nutritional standards listed on 7 CFR 210 M3. We will go over that standard so you'll easily be able to understand it. Vegetarian meals and snacks for children can meet the CACFP requirement like I mentioned below. Just remember, they will take a little extra work, but I'm going to discuss how to do that next. Vegetarians get their source of protein mostly through plant-based foods, such as dried beans, peas, and soy products, nuts, and seeds instead of meat, poultry, and fish. There are several different types of vegetarians. You may hear someone saying they're a flexitarian, or lacto-ovo-vegetarians, lacto-vegetarians, or vegan, which is the most restrictive, as they only eat plant-based foods. There are many ways to incorporate meat alternatives into snacks for vegetarian children. So we'll go over some snack ideas in a few minutes. So the meat is listed there. Like I mentioned, that is mostly your dried beans, peas, lentils, certain soy products, nuts, and their butters, like you can do nut butter. That can be substituted for meat and poultry. Also, a lot of vegetarians still eat cheese, eggs, and yogurt. You just have to talk to the parent about what kind of vegetarian they are. And then we have our alternative protein products, APP. They're processed from soy and other vegetable protein sources. All of those type of items would require a CN label or a manufacturer product formulation statement so you can understand how that will credit for your program. This is a snack idea for vegetarian child who is 3 to 5 year old. We have 2 ounces of low-fat yogurt served with any type of grain, such as a half of a graham cracker, and sprinkled with, or you can have it sprinkled with a third of a cup of oat cereal. Also, you have a fourth of a cup of pureed black or pinto beans, served with any type of bread, such as half an ounce of toasted whole wheat pita, or spread half an ounce toasted tortilla triangles with 2 tablespoons of salsa. So you can really be creative with this. You can really think outside the box, but we want to make sure you understand that you can easily accommodate a vegetarian or vegan child without getting a doctor's statement. It's not needed. Next, I'll talk about how to credit tofu. This was pretty new. In October of 2017, they actually updated the food buying guide. So it actually is going to help you be able to accommodate those children who don't eat meat. So I'll go over how this works. 1 pound of tofu with 37 grams of protein will have 7.28 quarter cup servings per pound and provide 7.25 ounces of equivalent meat alternatives for food-based menu planning. So on the next slide, we'll go over the food buying guide, and so you'll clearly be able to identify that. All right, so this is right out of the food buying guide. This is a brand new. You can find this on the food buying guide website. They always update different slides, so they added this section. This is the food buying guide specs for tofu and soy yogurt. So let's look at this slide, and I'll explain to you how to use the food buying guide. As you can see, from left to right, you have number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's how I'm going to go over it. In column 1, that is the food as purchased. So that tells you, like, what exactly are you buying? As in the name, or cut of meat, how much fat is in it, how is it packaged. You'll see here the first column says tofu commercial. Down below you have yogurt, soy. So that first column helps you identify exactly how the food is purchased. Column 2, you have purchase unit. What size does it come in? If it's a bulk item, you will probably see pound. You will notice that the yogurt has container and ounces. Column 3, servings per purchase unit. In column 3, it will let you know how your units are purchased. Column 4, serving size per meal contribution. Several different sizes are listed, usually corresponding to minimum lunch supper portion for 1 to 2-year-olds and 3 to 5-year-olds. Column 5 is purchase unit for 100 servings. Column 6 usually gives you additional information that contains about the yield. So if you look up at the screen, you see tofu is now added, and it's really easy to use, but as you see, it's going to be a lot of tofu to get 1 ounce. So in column 4, it's telling you that you can do a 1/4 cup or 2.2 ounces, and that's going to equal to 1 ounce of meat. So if you had a 6-year-old, of course, they are required to have 2 ounces of meat, so you would have to double that. Down below, you have your yogurt, which is the soy yogurt, which you can buy. You'll notice that it can be plain or flavored, sweetened or unsweetened. As you guys already know, the sugar limit for yogurt is for CACFP is no more than 23 grams of sugar per 6 ounces, so you want to make sure you follow that. But you can easily look at the columns and really identify how much you would need to give. If you look at the first one, if you bought it in a 32-ounce container, you would need to serve a 1/2 cup or 4 ounces to get 1 ounce of meat. So that's how you want to identify this when you're buying those tofu and yogurt, because as you can see, you have to serve a lot to actually get the meat alternatives. Next, we'll talk about the food substitution chart. When food substitutions are required, the following chart can help you determine when substitutions are reimbursable. So this is a chart that we use in our CACFP program a lot, and you can refer to this below to determine requirements for food substitutions when the meal is reimbursable. Always talk to your state agency if you have any questions as well. So I'll read this for you from left to right. So let's talk about a child who is vegetarian. It says will not eat eggs, cheese, and milk. So it says reimbursable when a meat alternative is substituted for meat. So we just went over that a few minutes ago. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you go down to where it says allergic to fruit, vegetable, or meat, example, allergic to strawberries, eggs, or nuts, it says you're going to need a doctor's statement when you're dealing with a severe allergy that's life-threatening. So you can really use this when you're trying to identify special needs or disabilities throughout your program as a guide. You can also share it with your parents. That way they can know that you are doing everything in your power to actually accommodate the children. The next page also kind of goes over about all those statements. It talks about, requires a tube feeding. Of course, you need a doctor's note for that. Requires ground or pureed food. You could easily do that yourself. So severely allergic to peanut butter, nuts, those things do not need a doctor's note. You just serve them something else. But I think you guys are pretty much getting the big picture. Just refer back to this chart if you have any other further questions. So next we'll talk about serving milk in the CACFP program. So we'll look at this next. So newborn through 11 months old, they have breast milk and iron fortified formula. Remember, breast milk is allowed at any age in CACFP. Next we have 12 months through 23 months, which is 1 year through 1 year and 11 months. They have unflavored whole milk. Iron fortified formula may be served to children between the ages of 12 months and 13 months to help with the transition to whole milk. So you can do that to help their tummies. Remember that if you go over that 1 month transition period, you would need a doctor's note for that to qualify. Next, we have 2 years through 5-year-olds up to their 6th birthday. They need unflavored, fat-free skim milk or unflavored, low-fat 1%. Also, unflavored whole milk and unflavored reduced 2% milk may be served to children between the ages of 24 and 25 months to help with the transition to fat-free skim or low-fat 1%. As mentioned before, you only get a month's transition. If you go over that, you would need a doctor's statement. Then we go on to our ages of 6 through 12, 13 through 18, and adults. They can have unflavored fat-free milk. They can have flavored milk, which is skim. They can have unflavored low-fat 1%. So I just kind of wanted to go over this with you. If you have any questions about this, please let us know. But I did want to make sure that you understood that when you're switching from whole milk or low-fat, or you're going through those age groups, you want to make sure you give those children some time for their tummies to adjust. So you do have that 1 month transition period. Also, flavored milk cannot be a part of the reimbursable meal or snack for children 5 years old and younger. Homemade flavored milk by adding flavored straws, syrups, powders, unflavored milk is not reimbursable, so do not add flavoring to your milks either. Even if it's a sugar-free flavoring, they say do not add any strawberry syrups or chocolate syrups or the straws. A child receiving infant formula and not in the weaning stage must have a doctor's note on file. Express breast milk may continue to be offered at any age. You do not request a doctor's note if a mom wants to breastfeed after the age of 1. You simply accept that. So do not ask for a doctor's note if a mom wants to breastfeed after 1 or 2, or any age for that matter. All right, food milk substitutions. As mentioned before, I think you understand that you must get the doctor's note to accommodate for disabilities. And then, of course, if it's not a disability, you can accommodate them if you want to. Any fluid milk substitutions may be made by the Child Care Center for Non-Disabled Children. When you have a statement on file, just make sure that you have those requests written down. All right, so finally we get to the non-dairy nutrient standards. So this is what I was mentioning before when I was going over the vegan and vegetarian diets. This here is the chart that you would need to use to identify, okay, well, I have a child, I want them to have soy products. You need to make sure that the label has all of these nutrient standards below and has the minimum of these amounts. So if you're not able to get that information, you would not want to purchase that soy milk if you were doing a accommodation for a child. And again, you do not have to have a doctor's note to serve soy milk, as you all are aware of. Just remember that that is all you need to have the label to say, and you'll be fine with your compliance review. Next, we have the milk substitution chart. When milk substitutions are requested, the milk chart can help you determine when substitutions are reimbursable. All right, so here we're talking about the types of milks and the parent requests. It's, for example, I'm looking at the third column to the left, fourth column. It says juice served to child instead of milk. That's never reimbursable unless you have a doctor's note. And you'll see some interesting doctor's notes out there. So you just remember to follow the doctor's note, how it's written. And this is a really good chart for you guys to use when you're trying to identify, what do I do with this child? They're saying I need to give, double vegetables, I need to give double fruit. You just really want to follow the doctor's note. That last column there says non-dairy milk substitution served to child, which does not meet the standards. Of course, that's never reimbursable. So this is something good for you to maybe train your staff on if they're having questions about all these things. So I wanted to be sure to share this with you. All right, compliance. So in order to ensure compliance with the milk requirements as outlined in 7 CFR 226.20A1, in this memo, centers and daycare homes must document the type of milk. That was put into effect October 1. So if you weren't used to documenting, you have to, so that we will know that you didn't serve flavored milk, for example, to a child under the age of 6. And all the other changes we talked about. So this includes listing the fat content, such as whole, low fat, or 1%, and fat-free or skim, if the milk is flavored. It's the responsibility of us to train you, and if you're a sponsor, to train your sites so they will know what kind of milk is served when conducting reviews.
All right, we want to take a look at the National School Lunch Program milk requirements. USDA requires grades K through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12 to take a minimum of 5 cups fluid milk per week and 1 cup per day at lunchtime. Some of the allowable milk options are fat-free, unflavored or flavored, low-fat, unflavored only, and then fat-free or low-fat, lactose-reduced or lactose-free. And just a reminder, you must offer at least 2 choices, and again, that is the student's decision on which one they would like to take. And you must ensure that it does not alter the nutrition standards for milk substitutes. Example will be soy and beverages. Okay. In regards to NSLP milk substitutions, juice is only an acceptable milk substitute if the student has a medical statement from a recognized medical authority documenting a disability, and the recognized medical authority requires juice to be substituted for milk. Juice cannot be substituted for milk without a documented disability. Substituted juice must be 100% juice. So again, as Mitzi mentioned earlier with CACFP, you will see some interesting doctor statements. As a reminder, again, the doctor may list that juice is what should be substituted, but remember, as required, juice must be 100% juice. So the doctor may put grape juice, but make sure that whatever you're serving is going to be that 100%, okay?
All right, so this is switching gears again. Same thing. We're looking at fluid milk substitutions for child nutrition program. So you can use this chart when you are trying to accommodate a child with soy milk. We went over that chart already, and this chart here shows everything that meets the nutritional standards that we talked about previously. But please note that some milks on this chart are flavored. And remember, as we already talked about, flavored milk is only allowed for children over the age of 6. So you can use this chart as a guide. Of course, the Department of Human Services does not endorse any of these companies or products listed. This chart is only for informational purposes. So you would need to still look at the whatever you're buying when you actually purchase it. But this was something we researched to really help you identify. So you have like 8 continent soy milk is one you could buy. You also could buy the Pacific All Natural Soy Original. There's also the Pearl Organic Soy Milk. So these are things you can buy, don't need a doctor's note, to accommodate any children in your program. And again, this is another list for you. You'll notice they do have generic products available as well. We have the Walmart Great Value Original Soy Milk. We also have the Original Silk Milk, which is the common one. So these are things you can find at your local grocery store. So I hope you guys can use this chart to help you find some credible items. Infant formula and food substitutions. It's recommended that a child care center offer the type of formula that the infant health care provider has suggested. If the child care facility offers a different formula, then the infant's parent may decline that formula. As you know, they're not required to be on our program. And there's actually a list of USDA food service actually provides a list of some items that you can actually look at, and that's listed here below. You can actually click on that link when you get this slideshow. So I hope that helps you, because that goes over the regulation and policy as far as providing like iron fortified milk and all those things. So I think you guys will enjoy that. Next, we're talking about parent-provided meal components. As you already know, you have to buy the items to get reimbursed. There is some discrepancy when you're dealing with a child who is disabled. So, for example, if you had a child who was on a tube feeding or a severe formula, you could still get reimbursement for that. If it caused your program to have some type of hardship, you would have to document that, and you would also have to have that written in the parent's letter or in the child's file. But you could get reimbursement for that, but you would still have to provide all the other items. So if you had a child who had a severe allergy of some sort and it was a very expensive formula that you cannot afford to buy, you would have to document all of that. And then you also would have to buy all of the other items. As a rule of thumb, if you didn't purchase the item, you won't receive reimbursement, unless, of course, like what I just talked about. This here is talking about for disabled children with special dietary needs, the CACFP and National School Lunch Provider facilities must provide all of the meal components. So just make sure that you know that if there's no medical reason, the center cannot claim the meal for reimbursement if you have not bought the food items.
All right, we're going to look at some Q&As. So the first is, a child who attends our center has a life-threatening allergy to peanuts, including traces of peanuts, and any contact with them could be fatal. To what lengths must our child care center go to accommodate the child? In this type of scenario, the allergy rises to the level of disability and the substitutions must be made. A physician's statement for food substitutions should indicate exactly what foods the child cannot eat and what foods you should substitute. If the statement says that the child cannot eat foods produced in a plant that also produces nuts, then you would have to withhold any product on your menu that could have been produced around nuts. You would need to replace those products with one of the items listed as an acceptable substitution. The general rule is to be cautious in these situations. For a product that could have been produced around nuts, if the product's packaging clearly says produced in a nut-free facility, then you should be fine. If the product packaging says nothing and you can't be sure, then it will be safer to omit the item from the meal or snack. You can also contact the supplier or manufacturer for more information. So again, in situations like this, I know sometimes you may see that there's a severe nut allergy, and so we've had schools in regards to NSLP and different facilities in the past who they've banned peanuts from the entire center. And so in cases like that, you know, there are mixed feelings, and some are like, oh, well, my child enjoys peanuts. But when you think about a life-threatening disability, a child's life isn't worth that package of peanuts that your child may want to consume. So if you know, the allergy is so severe that they are banned, then again, that's just something that the parents would have to understand and accommodate, because again, it's life-threatening. A child's parents have requested that a strict vegetarian diet be followed for their child. Must our center comply with this request? No. However, centers are encouraged to make food substitutions based on food choices of a family or child regarding a healthful diet. To serve a reimbursable meal, substitutions within the same component of the meal pattern may be made. For example, a black bean quesadilla could be served in place of a chicken quesadilla. Additionally, alternate protein products such as soy patties are allowed under the meal pattern for children ages 1 through 12. A manufacturer supplying an alternate protein must provide documentation that the product meets all of the following criteria. Processed so that some portion of the non-protein constituent of the food is removed. Safe and suitable edible products produced from plant or animal sources. Produced so the biological quality of the protein is at least 80% of casein and contains at least 18% protein by weight when fully hydrated or formulated. Next question. A child with a disability is on a number of medications. The physician's statement is well defined and includes menus with specific foods. If a situation arises where specific foods are out of stock, can a center make substitutions on an as-necessary basis? No. Unfortunately, staff cannot decide what substitutions are appropriate for a given child. Also, do not ask a child if it is acceptable to deviate from any of their individual plans. A child may be on a specific medication which could interact in a negative way with a particular food item. A list of appropriate substitutions should be noted on the physician's statement for food substitutions. Ideally, those substitutions should be on hand on a regular basis. If such a list is not provided, staff must ask parents to obtain the child's physician a list of those foods that may be substituted. I think this is a good place to kind of talk about forcing food upon kids as well. You want to be careful about that. I know, sometimes kids may see something on the menu that they really are not privy to or they prefer something else, and so they may decide on that particular day that they are allergic. If it's a newly introduced food, I would be cautionary with that. While they don't have a doctor's statement, again, it is on a case-by-case basis, but you don't want to force anything upon a child, and if need be, follow up with that parent at the end of the day to determine if this is truly an allergy or truly something that they are they have a food intolerance with that, and then you guys can move on to the next steps on those physician statements. But you do not want to force that. While you don't have to make those accommodations without those, you definitely don't want to force that upon the child. A child at our center is allergic to milk. Because the milk component only includes milk, there is no way to make a substitution and still meet the meal pattern requirements. What can we do? If the child has a disability, you would need to have their doctor complete the physician statement for food substitutions. This form will document if the child's allergy is a disability or not. The physician also would list the food that needs to be substituted for milk, possibly soy milk. Your institution would purchase the soy milk listed on the medical statement, and the child's meals could be claimed for reimbursement. And as a reminder, in regards to soy milk, you don't necessarily have to have a doctor's statement if you would like to serve the soy milk. If the child's allergy is not considered a disability, the center may choose to accept a signed statement from a medical authority, parent, or guardian. The statement would need to be kept on file. For the meal to be claimed, any milk substitute provided would need to meet the required nutritional standards. If a medical statement is not on file and the child is not receiving the milk, the meals cannot be claimed for reimbursement. Question. If the child doesn't have a disability, must the facility offer a milk substitute for a child with a medical or a special dietary need at the request of a medical authority or a parent? No. A center has a choice to offer milk substitute as part of the reimbursable meal to a child with a medical or special dietary need other than disability. However, we encourage facilities to try to meet the dietary needs of these children by offering a milk substitute that meets the requirements. If your facility chooses to do so, you must accept a written request from a medical authority or a parent or legal guardian. And in situations like this, you want to also make sure that you're being fair and ethical. If you do for one, you want to make sure that you're allowing the other to do if that's what you so choose to do. Again, while it's not required, again, you deal with these students every day, children at your facility as well as their parents, and you just want to ensure that that relationship is maintained and, try to accommodate when necessary, although it is your choice. Question. A child at our center is a picky eater and will not eat some of the meal components we provide. To ensure they receive the nutrition they need and don't go hungry, we substitute items they will eat. What can we do? In this case, you don't need to offer substitute meal components. While all required meal pattern components must be served to the children, The children do not need to eat them to claim a reimbursable meal. However, staff should encourage each child to take and eat the minimum required portions. There are many reasons for a child resistance to eating certain foods, such as an intense sensitivity to flavor, food boredom, a desire to make their own decisions, and the fear of trying new foods. For additional tips on this subject, the following resources are available online. You can see that you can visit the USDA's Nibbles for Health and then Mealtime Memo for Child Care. This is also prevalent within NSLP, and you want to definitely monitor those who aren't eating their meals. If it continues or you notice a pattern in regards to certain foods, you want to kind of take a look. Is this the majority or is it just this particular child? Typically, when it's the majority, then there's a taste factor going on with that. And at that point, you may want to switch those foods because it doesn't seem to be the most popular food amongst the children. So again, you really want to get to know the children that you are serving because again, it means nothing for them to be served the meal if they're not consuming the meal, whether it's nutritious or not, okay? Again, if you do notice a pattern and it is just that particular child, follow up with that parent. That's when parent and provider relationship is really going to be prevalent because you want to make sure that there's not anything that you're missing or anything that you need to change or that what can the parent help you with, okay? Question, will centers and daycare homes receive additional meal reimbursements if they provide a non-dairy milk substitution? No. Modified meals that are due to disability or non-disability, including meals with non-dairy milk substitutions, are reimbursed at the same rate as regular meals. Centers and daycare homes cannot require a parent or guardian to pay the difference between the fluid milk and the non-dairy milk substitute if non-dairy milk substitutes cost more than fluid milk. Again, it's one of those things. The idea and the whole goal of all of the programs is to feed the children nutritious meals. Really don't want to look into costs with that while we're not asking you to just, break the bank by providing that substitution. You definitely just want to ensure that the child is getting what they need so that they can remain healthy regardless of the cost. So kind of keep that in mind. So unfortunately, no, there's no additional funding, but we do applaud you for, doing that. So kudos to you. Question, when submitting menus for review, do centers and daycare homes need to document the type of milk that they serve? Yes. Starting October 1st, 2017, centers and daycare homes must document the type of milk served on their menu. The menu must indicate the fat content of the milk and if it is flavored. In addition, it is the responsibility of the state or sponsor, as applicable, to further ensure that the correct type of milk is being served when conducting reviews. If a physician or state-recognized medical authority prescribes whole cow's milk as a substitute for breast milk or infant formula for an infant younger than 12 months of age, is the meal reimbursable? For children younger than 12 months of age, cow's milk may be served as a substitute for breast milk and or infant formula and be part of a reimbursable meal if the substitution is supported by a medical statement signed by a licensed physician or state-recognized medical authority. A state-recognized medical authority for this purpose is a state-licensed healthcare professional who is authorized under medical prescriptions, who is authorized to write medical prescriptions under state law. If you are concerned or you're questioning any medical authority, please contact your state agency and we can help you with that. Question, is original soy milk considered flavored soy milk? Original soy milk is considered unflavored soy milk. Under the updated meal patterns for CACFP, children 1 through 5 years old may only be served unflavored milk and unflavored milk and unflavored non-dairy beverages. Because original soy milk is considered unflavored, it may be served to participants of any age that are unable to consume fluid milk due to a special dietary need, as long as it is nutritionally equivalent to cow's milk per the nutrition standards outlined in 7 CFR 226.20G3. Are there any questions? Looks like we have a few rolling in. We will not be sending out the PowerPoint. However, there will be a link provided. It has been recorded, and so you will be able to view it at a later date. It'll take a few days for us to get the MP3 and MP4, but once that is received, then we will that link will be provided, and then you will also be able to access it on our YouTube channel.
Okay, we have another question. Let's pull it up and we'll be able to answer you. All right. So this next question says, is almond milk part of the reimbursable meal? That is a great question. It is not. Thank you for asking that question. Almond milk, goat's milk, hemp milk, rice milk, pet milk, all of those are not reimbursable without a doctor's note. The only milk you can serve without a doctor's note would be soy. You can also serve lactose-free milk without a doctor's note, but almond milk is never reimbursable. And I know without a doctor's note. And I know that's very, very popular. Just tell the parent it's not nutritionally equivalent to cow's milk. We went over that chart. You only use that chart when you're trying to identify soy milk. So you don't use that chart for just anything, right? So it has to be nutritionally equivalent. And if you would look at almond milk, the back of that nutrition facts label, it would not be equivalent. So to answer your question, no, almond milk is never reimbursable without a doctor's note. You also said the doctor's note must be submitted, statement. Okay, yeah. So basically, yes, you have to have a doctor's note for that. So for those who are asking, you will get this presentation. It takes us a few weeks to get it back, but we always mass alert all of our webinars out. So you be looking for your alerts. And we also have a YouTube channel that we also alert. So we update that YouTube channel with all of these. It takes about 2 months for us to put it on YouTube, but you do get a link to this within a few weeks. Well, next I got another question. This one says, I don't understand your question, Kaylee, about package. So if you can restate that below, I'll be happy to answer your question. Another person has asked, Miss Carla, you asked, will we be able to print the slides off? Sure. When you get this PowerPoint, you will be able to print as you wish.
And if for some reason, because we did have to alter the chart, to put it on the PowerPoint, you need a PowerPoint, you need just that particular chart sent to you, we can do that as well.
Okay. Are you talking about Miss Kaylee? Maybe you have to make contact the state agency. I'm not understanding your question. I think you're talking about PKU disease. You're talking about the formula for that. That would require a doctor's statement as well. As you know, that has to do with purine, so that's very hard for the child to digest. So that would also be any type of life-threatening type of disease that would need a doctor's statement. All right. So excuse me, that includes our webinar today. Thank you again for watching. We have all our references here below, so you can always look at those. So again, we want to thank you for joining our webinar. This is the USDA non-discrimination statement. We thank you and we hope you have a great rest of your afternoon.
Bye.